All right, welcome back, everybody, to the second part of today's podcast, where we are going to have a special conversation between three Peterborough United fans that we invited on the podcast. So Darragh put a post on Twitter inviting anybody to really come on and just have a conversation about some of the things that are going on at the club right now. I'm going to be structuring this a little bit so that we're keeping it around certain topics in an order, so it's not just everyone asking different questions at different times, but there's no limitations that we've put on anything that can be asked. There's be things I'm sure that Darragh can answer. There'll be things that Darragh can, but we want to make this as open as we possibly can. Darragh, any comments before I start going to the questions?
I love a good forum. I love a good debate, a healthy debate. I know. Everyone was saying Levi wouldn't come on. Fair play, he's on. Levi said I'd bottle it, obviously, and wouldn't have him on. So I'll take the apology up front there. That he's on. And I would have had Ian Gow on. That's who I am. I give a fuck. You know what I mean? Look, if you got a problem with me, I'm always that guy. Tell me the problem. I'll try and solve the problem. If I can't, I can't. And sometimes we get caught up. And I guess it's a different generation. You guys are younger. Everything's social media. Everything's behind a computer screen. Everything is exasperated by, you get your anger down on a side. My kids are the same. You put shit down on social media. I've done it as well. You lose your shit sometimes, and then you think, fuck, I shouldn't have done that. I got to take that back. And I think that's just modern life. There's so much lack of talking and communication sometimes. Everything is done via social media. So it's really good sometimes when you're at a game and your fan says to you, well, I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy about this. And you can go, okay, well, this is what I can do. This is what I can't do. Do you know what I mean? And social media is difficult because you get, I don't know how many words to answer people. And sometimes I can be salty because I get someone coming at me. I'm not saying this about Levi or anyone else. They'll have an agenda, or they'll be trying to dig me out, and we just got beaten. Or everything's just going to shit. And I'm just fucking, now it's the hammer. Here we go. We're going to just hammer. And yes, I can take it. It's not a problem. But I am human. So sometimes you just go, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake. Give me a break. Give me a break. At the moment, obviously we won on Saturday, and I tend now not really to be on social media, that part of Twitter, I'm on my normal part where I'm sports, whatever, updates and comment, but not on my comment section. I don't know what that's called, mentions or whatever.
Your notifications.
Right. I don't go on there, win or lose, till Monday, usually now. It's like, you know what, just leave it alone, whatever. So I've gone on taday a little bit, and I think it's nonstop about the standing, the safe standing. It's just, massive threads about this, the safe standing. I'm just, oh God. It's Monday morning. I was just Monday morning, give us a day, give us 2 days, you know what I mean? And we'll get into it. So listen, you guys have got stuff to say. Be honest. We spoke before you came on air. I said to you guys, anything you want to talk about, not a problem. I will let you know what we can talk about, what we can't, and we'll all be respectful. There's no bullying going to go on here. I'm not trying to belittle anybody. I'm not trying to get the better of somebody, to show to the fans or whatever else. It's not about that. So you want to air grievances, but let's do it in the right way. Let's make it constructive. You know what I mean? And that way then we can, because I'm a solutions person. It's not just about problems. I'm always like, when people bring me stuff at a club, I'm like, okay, what's the solution? You're bringing me a problem. What is the solution in your way of thinking? So let's go. Let's get at it. Who wants to first? Do we get? Levi's got to be up first, right?
Well, I want to ask you the first question,
okay.
Because I just want to ask you, because I think this is contextual for the things you can talk about and the things you might not be able to talk about as much. If you could talk a little bit about how you, Jason, and Randy, the co-owners, split responsibilities at the club. What are different parts of the pie, so to speak, that you're all responsible for, and how involved are you in the things that the other co-owner, whichever is the responsibility, is actually doing?
A lot this summer, so I've been like chief bottle washer this summer. So in any normal time, it would be Jason. Obviously, likes to, what would he work on? Fan engagement, fan initiatives, structure around that, how to improve the match day experience. And Randy would be a bit involved in that too. He obviously likes to have his meetings to do with the youth and Kieran and the youth coaches and everything else. Randy would be more about how can we improve the commercial aspect of the side of the club. What can we do about the new stadium? What can we do about the current stadium? Problem solving, financial stuff. what would I do? So obviously everyone knows, yes, football's my thing. I would deal with, there's 250 football staff. So every member of staff on the football side would deal with me. I would deal with obviously the CFO to do with doing deals, factoring deals, that kind of thing. Budgets. I would obviously spend a lot of time with the management team, regards every time to the transfer window. If a manager quits, they're ringing me. If I have to fire a manager, I'm ringing them. And thank that hasn't happened for a few years actually. And player issues, player problems. This morning, I'm on the phone with a manager. It was 7:30 my time for an hour. Then I had Liz for an hour. Then I had the sports science department for an hour about a player who's had continual hamstring issues and trying to find solutions. It could be even like minimal, like I was Thursday, Ricky's agent was on to me, about Ricky, and about, not about his contract or anything else, about, what else we can do to help him at 19 and deal with the other side of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, young players see some of the stuff written about them. I'm not saying this was about Ricky, but that's just, aside. And I go, look, we've got a person who works with the players at the club, and this is something we can do. And, so you can throw in the mix there. There's something we had safeguarding on to deal with yesterday. So there's lots of different stuff. It's not just, and obviously I'm the, if I do transfer deals, negotiating contracts, and obviously the owners want me to be the media guy. So again, I'm wheeled out. Sky, BBC, those people want me on. Yes, I'll do it. Even though I didn't do it on deadline day, so I was just like, I don't want to do it on deadline day, but I'll do Sky, the transfer window, and be the smiler and be the optimist. And so we all have individual roles. There's many times stuff can cross, but we each work within our own areas. And so again, there's some stuff you'll say to me, and I'll go, well, there's not a lot I can say about that right now, but that's been worked on by everyone together. And before I came on the call as well, I had a Zoom call with my partners. So that was the first Zoom call we were all on together since we saw each other in Portugal. So that was obviously a long agenda, a long list, before I came on to you guys. So yeah, there you go.
All right, so I'm going to start it with there's some questions that I know the guys had around the stadium. Levi, I'm going to open it first to you. I think that you had something around the terrace situation you wanted to cover, but fire away with any stadium-related questions you might have.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to ask first of all, what has happened with the terrace over the summer? Like, obviously, in the championship, it wasn't sort of able to use it. I think I'm right in saying that sort of we had to start sort of the plans, not down the terrace sort of before the last season finished. However, I would probably say that January time it looked pretty unlikely we were going to be a championship club again next year. I think for a lot of Big Posh fans, the terrace, and I recognise that there's lots of clubs who aren't in the same way as us, but the terrace is great for Posh fans because it means you can go with people who wouldn't go so much, and they can sort of you can sort of stand with them. Like me personally, this year I had a season ticket last year. I go every week. My brother, who I go with, can't go every week. We can, because he had to buy tickets next to each other. I no longer bought a season ticket this season. I still been to every game, but I didn't buy a season ticket. And then I'm just sort of wondering what's happened. The first game of the season, it was okay, different but okay, and then now it's sort of been half empty. We had Sheffield Wednesday, which should have been a massive game. I was sort of in a position where it was like watching a pre-season friendly. There were very few people around me. The atmosphere was sort of non-existent, and it sort of feels a little bit like home games this season. The life has been sucked out of the terrace. I know it's not always amazing atmosphere in there, but it definitely feels like it's sort of worse than it has been for a long time. So I'm just wondering what has happened with the terrace. Why has it not been full? And what's going on there?
So we made the decision that we had to get that done. We weren't going to spend millions on knocking it down and putting seats in. It wasn't viable. The best option was the safe standing, the rail seats and whatever, getting it all done. So basically, thanks, Gary. We made a decision. Look, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done this summer. We went out to tender, to put it out there for pricing. We went to 4 different people for pricing to get it done, and we chose one very good operator to get it done on time. Unfortunately, one of the people we didn't choose got the hump and made it his life's mission to report us over everything. And this is something I shouldn't even probably say, but went to safety advisory, nuts, bolts. The first match of the season, he was there with a picture and a camera, taking pictures of it and sending it to those who make those decisions about shutting down areas and stuff. Whilst the only other club he actually got the job to do didn't get it done on time, which was in the Championship. So we've had a lot of that going on in the background. And that's meant that we had to close a section of it, a percentage of it. We had to appease the SAG committee to make sure that it was safe, clean up all those bits and pieces you saw. Because it was at the end, we were against time and it was maybe semi-rushed. And it was opened when maybe a large percentage of it should have been open, but not all of it. And making sure that it was, because we had inspectors at the first few games. And if the inspections went against us, it would have been a disaster. And that was all based on this guy terrorizing us for not getting the job in the first place. I think your biggest gripe would be you couldn't get to sit next to each other or choose the one next to each other, correct? There's an issue with groups.
That's definitely one of the issues, yeah.
Being together. And obviously it takes the atmosphere away because you can't charge up and down like you used to and whatever else. Well, there's nothing I can do about that because we want to be back in the Championship in 7 months' time. And we're going to need seats. Otherwise, that stands closed. Otherwise, we're going to lose the potential of having 1,800, 2,000 people buying tickets. But what we can do is we can clean it up. We can have less, Gestapo-like policing or safety as the stewards, regards to the way they're doing it at the moment, monitoring people. I see people have asked, can they move everyone to the Desco? Well, the problem with that is you're still going to have people who want to be in that stand. You're going to have like die-hard fans who are going to want to be there. They're not going to want to move to the Desco, correct? So then it's finding that compromise, So when we spoke this morning as an ownership group, we spoke about in March, whenever we do season tickets, what we need to do this time is we need to give people like yourself and other groups of people who are coming, their 10s of 15 or 20 people together, to be able to go in and buy a batch together and also have a sign for their seat in their area and maybe give people a little bit more time so that it's organized a bit better. What other suggestions would you throw at me that we could do?
I don't know. First of all, I should say, by the way, I'm not one of these people who goes in sort of a group of 20 and likes to charge around because he scored a
Sure.
55th minute goal against a bottom half club. But
unless it's Ronnie Edwards scoring an OG,
hey,
charging around, celebrating.
Honestly, I'll be straight on Twitter for that. Don't worry about that. But I just was wondering, was there no sort of option for us to say, okay, well, we're not in the Championship this season. We don't know what's going to happen. Yes, everyone here most of us here want us to get back into the Championship next season. But last time we got relegated, it took us, several years to do so. Who knows? It may happen again, may not. We don't know. There is supposedly at some point, who knows, a new stadium coming around the corner anyway. Was there a real need to completely knock it down? And so, or could we not have said, well, we're in League One again now, and we can keep it this way for the foreseeable?
Yeah, because the way we looked at it was we're optimistic. We plan with optimism. So the plan was to still be in the Championship. And at the stage of planning and organising and pre-ordering parts in a world where inflation's going through the roof, decisions had to be made early. And they were made around a time where we could still stay in the Championship, Levi. So the decision was, if we didn't go ahead and do that, A, it would have been probably 60% more expensive. B, if we didn't do it, we would end up with an empty stand in the Championship if we'd stayed in the Championship. And that would have been 7 figures in losses that we couldn't get in revenue from ticket streams. So the decision was made rightly or wrongly, and obviously for some it's wrongly, and I apologize for that. We made it with the right mindset, with the right positive mindset. I like to plan for success, not for failure. I'm superstitious like that. If I turn around and said, you know what, it's February, March, we're not going to sign off on it, we're not going to agree to deal because we're probably going to be in League One. In my mind, that means we're fucking definitely going to League One, because now I've just put the kibosh on us and bloody cursed us. So I couldn't do that. So I like to think the other way and go, you know what, we're going to stay in the champ. That brilliant recruitment's going to come off. We're going to fly. I'm taking the piss. We're going to fly, and stay in the champ, and everything's going to be fine. Hopefully it's a year. But you're absolutely right. If we're in League One for 3, 4, 5 years, it's like, fuck, there goes our lovely stand that we all enjoy, and here we are. But I can't change the past. I always say the past doesn't pay the future's bills. All I can say is it's there now. We have to make the best of it. And, if you and your brother aren't enjoying it or you can't be together or whatever else, all I can say there is you got to move somewhere else in the stadium where maybe it is better for you, and that's maybe not ideal for you, but it's the only solution I've got. There's nothing I can do, So if Rome was built in a day, hey, but I didn't build Rome. So I wasn't involved in the process. So that's where we are. And any other solutions that are viable, I'm all for it. And we do listen, regardless of what people think, we do listen to fans. And, you know, as an ownership group, when we're on these, you know, we do an agenda like today, a lot of time goes into the fans. Today was because of a lot of the stuff on social media about people's unhappiness in the safe standing. So we're discussing that in detail, going, right, well, what can we do? You know, what is the solution here? And it's 30, 40 people who are unhappy. You know, if it was all 1,800 people, it's like, okay, do we move them to the Desco? But it's not. So I don't know. That's where I am with that one. Maybe that's not a satisfactory answer for you. So we'll have to get on to the next question.
Yeah, no, yeah, fine.
And John, anything that you had to add related to stadium questions?
Yeah, I guess I don't actually stand in the terrace, so it hasn't massively affected me because I was in the south stand anyway. But I think it has been noticeable that the atmosphere is not quite as good as it has been. Not saying that London Road is particularly an electric stadium, but it can get up for night games and things like that in particular. There's definitely been an influence. So I don't know if there's ever sort of...
I thought the Tuesday game against Sheffield Wednesday was good, the atmosphere.
It wasn't bad, but I personally, I feel like there's definitely been a reduction in noise levels in general.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether this would be feasible, but would you ever consider like a singing section? Because at the minute it feels a little bit sparsely populated in there. I know the terrace in general is where the singers go, but could you come up with that? And I guess part two of my question would be, what about the new stadium? Obviously, we hear a lot about the sort of like development of London Road, but we haven't really had too much of an update. It's still a bit murky. I mean, I don't know what Levi and Bucks think, but I don't really know where we are with the new stadium. We were told it was getting built by a certain date. I'm guessing that date is now gone. So kind of like, what is the latest would be quite good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not my neck of the woods. It's Randy's dealing with it. You know, can I give you an update on where it is right now? It's not happening today. You know, but we're not giving up on it. There's a lot of politics involved. There's ever-changing moving parts. There's people coming into power, out of power. We all know where we want it. We believe we can deliver it. We believe we've got the finance in place to deliver it. We think it would change. You know, I was talking about a report we put into the city, which showed over 15 years, nearly 300 million in ancillary revenue that goes to the city of Peterborough. I think anyone with a brain can see what new stadia does for cities, particularly in America. With like, you look at the NFL, you look at different things. You know, I was in Vegas. Vegas gave $1 billion to the Raiders to build that $2 billion Death Star Stadium. Why did they do it? Because of what happens in the city. We're not asking the council for any contribution to the stadium. You know, we want to build a stadium that we think can change the landscape for everyone, for the football club, for the city, for that site. You know, have events 300 days a year. We want to do it. We honestly think like it's a game changer, because I'll always say there's so many fans in the city that maybe have moved the last 2 years with the migration to Peterborough from, say, London and areas that are too expensive. Now people can do is it a 45-minute train to London to work or a 50-minute train? There's a lot of families that have moved. We know they'll come to championship games. We know in a nice new shiny stadium with nice toilets, their wives, their kids will come. Some of them won't come to the current place we're in. So we know the uplift that would happen for the team. So it's not coming from us that it's murky, that we don't want it anymore. Trust me, we've already spent like nearly 700 grand on planning related stuff and consultancy related stuff on that new stadium. 700 grand. So, you know, Randy wants the stadium. Jason wants it. We all want the stadium. I presume you all guys want a new stadium. So, you know, Randy can get into the specifics of where he is with the council and the latest, but just from my perspective, it's something we all want.
And I want to bring Bucks in here. I know you had a question that actually you received from somebody else on Twitter that you just suggested in the DMs to me before we started around ownership of London Road. I don't know if you would be interested in posing that, or if you've really got anything else you want to share or any concerns.
I now don't have that one in front of me.
Okay.
But yeah, have you got it to hand?
Yeah, I don't have the exact, but I can paraphrase. It was essentially asking Darragh a question around who is it, like who owns the stadium? Is it you, Darragh, independently? Is it the three owners as an ownership group? And kind of what's the protections there should the club ever get separated from the stadium from an ownership perspective?
Well, the first protection is the covenant. Okay, unless Peterborough United moves to a ground with a new covenant to take it with it. All right, the stadium's protected. London Road can't have anything built on it while Peterborough United are playing football there. So the minute Peterborough United, the football club, moves to a new stadium, it takes the covenant with it. so to speak, which means London Road could become student flats. It could become whatever, a shopping centre, a fucking Asda, for all I care. If you're in a brand new spanking stadium, it doesn't matter. As an ownership group, we set up an independent company that we all own a third of. A third. The fellas borrowed money to buy the stadium. That debt is on that company, not the club. That was something I was very strong about. I didn't want to lumber the club with a £6 million mortgage. Now, at the time, fans were like, oh, the club should own the stadium, whatever else. But no, think of the logic in what I'm saying. Right now, our football club rents for 25 years with a 25-year renewable lease. Okay, so there is no debt related to the stadium on the football club, and that's the way it was done. If it was cleared out and there was no debt, could we join them together? Of course we could, but it was done for the right reasons. It wasn't done for any murky reasons of, oh, I'm a real estate guy from 20. Well, what was they call me, the salesman or the real estate salesman 20 years ago, and I want to build a load of flats, and as if that's really the first place I go back into real estate to build flats. Is like, with all due respect. So that's why we did it. That's the truth. And the stadium cost a lot of money to operate. There's a lot of moving parts. So I think it was Nick Jackson who asked you, Bucks. Was it Nick Jackson?
That's correct. Yeah, that's right.
And I could see the threads on Twitter, and I could see the stuff sometimes when people go, where's the 30 million in transfer income gone? Where's this gone? Where's that gone? And I'm like, and I don't want to sound arrogant. I don't want to sound conceited, because Levi would probably say, there you go, I knew he's that guy. What I want to say is, like, just think for a moment. Like, you're running a football club that, to operate and run a club like ours is over 12, 13 million quid. When I first came, it was probably 5, 6 million quid. We don't have the income to match that. So there's always going to be a deficit every year. Whether that's plugged by owners or plugged by transfer sales, that's the way we operate our football club. And when people say, but he's a businessman, he didn't buy the football club to make a loss. Well, I've been here 17 years and I'm still out millions of quid for my money. So really, I'm not ahead. I am owed money. And if I was ahead, I would turn around and say, you're absolutely right. I take a profit out every year, and the club owes me nothing and everything's gravy. No, I didn't buy Peterborough United, as you all know, to make a profit.
So you're not using Posh to fund your jet set lifestyle, which some suggest, then, Darragh. Who knew?
Books.
Who knew?
You know what? The beauty about transparency and accounts and everything else that people can see, there's like 0.1% of the club's owned by fans. It's all there to be seen. I said it before. The last money I took out of the club was when I sold my shares, and my partners had to put in for me to get out. So that's the only time I've taken money in the last, 12 years, 10 years out of the football club. So I am in essence owed money. If anything, I still put money into the football club, which is, I'm not moaning about that. I get angry when people go, he's taking all the transfer income, or he's spending that money on his life, and of course, I promise you can see it all. It's there to be seen. If you can show me where I am taking a profit from the football club, I'll walk away today. So I'm not.
And I only hope that doing this puts it to bed and people stop going on about it now, because it is boring, it's draining.
I would say to
leave it. You've answered this 1,000 times.
Look, I would say to anybody who doubts what I'm saying or has a problem with what I'm saying, is make an appointment, come see me at the club. You can talk to our CFO, bring a shareholder with you, and you can go through the accounts that are out there for everyone to see, and you can ask questions. No problem on transparency. There's no hidden section there. There's no area where I've nicked $1 million here, $1 million there, whatever else, and suddenly, the club owes me nothing, and now it's just gravy I'm taking out all the time. Absolutely not. I rarely even take expenses out, of the club, for flights, for meetings, for whatever else when I come over. Rarely. So no, I tell you. And by the way, I'd have no problem saying to you, oh, by the way, the club made a £3 million profit, and I took £500,000 salary, because I'd fucking deserve it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I wouldn't expect any fan to go, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Well, no, I put enough time in. Do you guys work for free? So, that's what I would say. And I would never, ever shy away from that. And I'd go, hey, if you don't like me for that, give a fuck. I deserve it. I always said it. We got to the Premier League. Would I take 10 million tomorrow? You're damn fucking right. We'd have 300 million on the table. I think I deserve that. Even Levi would probably agree that I deserve that. There you go. He's nodding. Keep that in video, Phil. All right. If by some miracle,
Now you make the decision, and as an ownership group, you make the decision to run at a deficit at the start of every year, and a pretty significant deficit, because
this summer,
because you believe, because the transfer policy ultimately you believe will fund that, right? So that's kind of the strategy of the club. Is you know, if you weren't running at a deficit, then you were just 100% self-funding, you would probably have a League Two budget, I would imagine.
I would imagine if we didn't do with the policy I've enacted for 17 years, if we didn't run with that, if we didn't run with a bit of ownership money in there, we'd probably 9th, 10th in League Two, which is okay, which is fine. You know, some clubs, some fans, if there's no expectation, if that's it, and you want to do a Crew or you want to do a Colchester, that can be done. What I've always tried to do is set the club up in a way where it could prosper. It could always have a chance. I know Levi will criticize and say, well, you spent 8 years in the wilderness in League One. I would answer that and go, well, I tried my best, and I don't think we ever fell below whatever it was, 8th, 9th, 10th. A couple of times we should have been in the playoffs. A couple of times we should have got promoted. I think we won a cup, and then we did get promoted, and we should have got promoted during COVID season. So whilst you might not have liked it at the time, we were always pretty competitive. I think it was the season Grant fucking beat us to it at Doncaster. It was the last day of the season. We beat Burton. They beat Coventry. The following year was the COVID year. We should have really won the league, and Ivan was with us and it was shut down. And then the following year after that, we did win promotion. So, and yes, before that, there was a few years where it was kind of like up and down, but it was never up and down in a Gillingham way. There was never a danger of that. It was always, we had belief. Our fans always thought, well, we're going to win every game still. They still had that. I would hate our fans to have a mindset of, oh, fuck, are we going to win this week? Are we not going to win this week? And I don't want to sound arrogant about that, but that's based off of a good policy, transfer policy, one that not everyone agrees with, but one I think is like a safety net for the football club. And when I say a safety net, this summer, I was going through it the other day, and I have all the emails. I turned down £14 million in bids for players. Now, if you look at what Barnsley did, Barnsley took every offer for all their best players. John can back that up. They sold pretty much a lot of their key assets. They sold their two main strikers. They sold, I think, their best centre half. They loaned their best midfielder to the champ. They took out 5 or 6 very, very good players, because obviously, they're suffering like we are. And I'm not criticising Barnsley. If I come out to the Peterborough fans and said, look, there's a £7 million hole, I'm going to do a fire sale to clear that up and clear the debt. Is everyone okay with that? But we might not be as competitive. Do you think our fans would be okay with that? Do you think that the Ian Gowes of the world and other people of the world would be okay with us coming out and doing that? I'm not sure. I don't really want to do that anyway, because I want to have a chance. I want us to be competitive. I want us to sign players. I remember meeting Grant at the end of May with his number 2 and saying, look, before we get started and talk recruitment, we have a £6+ million hole that we have to fill. I'm not sure there's an appetite amongst the owners to cover it. That's the truth. COVID's not been good to everyone. Times have been tough the last year. So I'm going to have to try and navigate us through it. Player sales, player trading as best I can. And buy us time. The first bit of time is you go summer to Jan, and then you go Jan to summer. So you get your window in the summer, you get your second. And by the way, this is no alert that the club's in trouble or whatever else. When I say there's no appetite, nobody in ownership wants to throw it in, but they will if they have to. So what I'm saying there is I then have to navigate around that and make sure, can I give the manager what he wants? Can I give the fans what they want? And can I get our bills paid? Because I've always been really proud in 17 years that we've never, ever, 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 touch wood, missed a payday. Always paid our people. And a lot of clubs haven't been able to do that. And I've always been really, regardless of what people think about me, one of the proudest things of my time at Peterborough, when you see a lot of clubs go out of business, a lot of clubs in trouble, we've always navigated through whatever that's been thrown at us. And this summer, I have to say, there's a lot thrown at me this summer, a lot. And it took a lot out of me, as you know, Phil. You know what I mean? We'd speak in the summer. So, and all I can ever do is try my best. And that includes trying to help the manager, trying to give him the tools he needs. And we can go on to recruitment. We can talk all about that. But, nothing I've just said is dishonest. And Levi, you might have, pins to throw at some of that stuff, but that's just me being completely transparent. So by all means, and any of the stuff I've just said, throw stuff at me, ask me.
Yeah, to jump in on that, and this one probably isn't from me, but I see fans saying it, or it isn't from me, because I think I understand the thing, but I know what people are going to say listening to this. Obviously, we've brought in fees for Smodics and Dembele,
Sure.
In the last 2 windows, and we've not gone out and signed sort of that £1 million player, which we have in previous windows.
Okay.
So I guess in transfer fees, we've made a profit, right, for the last 2 windows. Is that correct, looking at the fees? Because I imagine Smodics and Dembele, from what's been reported, is about 3.5 million.
So you go through it. So we got 1.5 for Dembele, payable over 4 transfer windows. So what's that per transfer window?
400k-ish, 375.
He had like 5 months left on his contract.
Yeah.
So I felt that was pretty good business for someone who didn't want to be at our club. We obviously had to sell on to Grimsby. You know, people always ask about undisclosed. And I always say to these fans, come to me personally. I'll show you the deal. No one else can know about that because it's undisclosed, but I'm not hiding anything. I'm going through it now. So you got 20% to Grimsby. You've got levies. You got payment installments. We factor the money. You pay a percentage when you factor the money to bring it forward. So it's not always what you think. Oh, we've got £1.5 million. You know, don't forget, we have a hole from January to the summer to fill, even in the championship. Our hole going into the championship, even with all the championship money, was 4 million. It wasn't like when we were in the champ 10 years ago, where our players were on 900 quid a week and we actually traded with a profit. It wasn't like that. So there's already a hole when you get there. We had like £1.3 million in player bonuses for the promotion. I asked them all for the money back a year later, but they wouldn't give it back. We had another 700 grand in club bonuses, where Bristol Rovers got a promotion bonus. Grimsby would get a promotion bonus. You know, the things you do when you do deals. So, you know, you go through the Smodics deal and everyone's going, you know, Smodics and the deal, whatever else. First off, he wanted to go, and he'll tell you that himself. And he was 27. And this was his chance to get a good payday. And he's been really, really good for us. And bear in mind, in January, when Darren obviously didn't want him at the time, the best offer we had on the table was a loan deal with Oxford. And I stopped the loan deal with Oxford. And the reason I stopped it was because my biggest fear, if you went to Oxford and he wasn't playing well and he ended up on their bench, then he's worthless in the summer. Would you all agree with that? That that's the right thing to do? Okay. So he came back he didn't go to Oxford. Grant came in and he played his best football the last 7-8 games. Suddenly we go from January, a player worth nothing, to suddenly in the summer, Blackburn won him. We knew Blackburn wanted him all summer. And they made 5 bids. And to be fair to the player, the first few bids, him and his agent were very, very cool because they understood they weren't great. But then when the bids were better, they weren't as cool, and it's not a dig on them. At that stage, the player's like, you're stopping me. You're stopping me like getting like a really, really good move to a really good football club and on a lot more money. So, and then the biggest problem for me was not having another club to do a bit of a compete, so I can kind of inch the deal up and inch it up and inch it up. But we were prepared in May. We spoke to Grant, spoke to the management team and said, look, Sammy will probably go in the summer. You know, he's our highest paid player. You know, it will help with the hole we have. And that's the truth. And Grant understood that. And we're very honest about that. You know, that's the price of relegation. But the problem with the deal we got was, again, nobody has money up front to pay. The Blackburn deal wasn't 2.5 million. It was 1.8 plus add-ons. And we still owed Bristol City 500 grand. When I bought Smodics, it was $1 million over 4 years. 250, 250, 250, 250. So you have to pay. If you sell a player and you still owe a club, first thing that happens is that club has to get paid back. So there's 500 grand straight away. So there was no massive windfall of money like everyone thinks. But that didn't stop me trying to navigate and do deals. You know, because I'll then do deals. If we have to buy a player, I'll do it over time. We have to go, you know, we bid for a player in League Two. We bid for various players or whatever else, you know, and then everyone had to dig at me because we signed, obviously, Efron Clark. You know, no word of a lie. If one of you wants to hang around, I'll find you the email from Grant and you can see the email yourself. He wanted him in June. And I know Levi's posted on Twitter, you know, Efron Clark was signed because Darragh wanted him, whatever else. No disrespect to the boy. I didn't want to sign him. And Alan Swan, if you're listening, don't make a headline of that because I don't want to kill the kid. Okay. It was, I'd seen him with Jack Taylor a couple of years ago and we were looking at doing a double deal. We played them in the preseason. I was out in San Diego at the time of Comic-Con. I like both him and Jack Taylor. But he never kicked on. He's kind of been at Barnet too long. My manager had a call off an agent about him in June. I was in Dubai, rang me. And I said at the time, no, as a club, I'm not sure, We then played them, and Barry and the manager non-stop about it. Now, to be fair, he destroyed us when we played him. I think he'd set up and scored a goal down that side, did very well. And again, after the game, really like him. And I'm kind of like, And then I did a lot more analysis on him, a lot more. And I was like, I can see he needs a challenge. And he could be one of them players who could step up, technically all day long step up. Can he step up mentally? Can he do everything that needs to be done? And Portsmouth were heavily in for him. And the manager, we would look at getting a Nottingham Forest boy on loan. We looked at buying a player from League Two. And we were looking at it all. And we were going away from, the manager wanted a 4-3-3, and suddenly we're looking at 10s because of the way the start of the season had happened. And Sammy wasn't a traditional 10. He was a wrecker in a midfield 3. So, we're having these recruitment meetings. We're having these conversations. We're talking about players at 10. We're talking about players. And then one morning, I woke up, and the manager can back this up. It was a Sunday morning, and there's an email from the manager, and it might have been a Monday morning, going, Chairman, I met with Baz again. I met with Cliff again. And he goes, I really want Efron Clark. I really want the player. I wanted him in June. I wanted him in July. I don't want that player. I don't want a 10. I don't want I want Efron Clark. He plays a 9, and he can play wide in a 4-3-3. And he can definitely play as a 9. And he goes, I think he's got massive ability. I think I can develop. And that's who I want. And the boy wants to come, more importantly, and he wants to come to us over some bigger teams in League One. At that stage, I was like, you know what? I often get criticised for disagreeing with my manager, or we do our own thing. I was like, okay, no problem. If that's what you want, that's what we'll do. My email back was, Baz, here's the deal. Try and get this deal off with Barnett. That's it, take it or leave it. As regards to the player, this is the deal, take it or leave it. If either of them say no, we're moving on. That was my way of basically saying, I'm trying to get you the player, but if they say no to both of those things, we move on to another option. Well, fair play to the player, him and his agents, brilliant. They worked it. Tony from Barnett ended up bringing me because he was moaning, he wanted more, wanted this, wanted that. And I said, Tony, it's not happening. We've bought players from you before. We've done very well. Jack Taylor, Ronnie, we're tapped. That's the best I can do. Yeah, but Portsmouth in this club, I'm like, I haven't got it. Yes or no? And to be fair to Tony, it was yes, we did it. And the player and his agents came with me and Barry to the Stevenage League Cup game and sat with us, and we met the manager, and really, really nice lad. And I'm glad we signed him. And I know some of you are like already writing him off. And he's a player. He's a very good player. And he's a very good character. And our manager likes players who are, what's the right word? You boys are all the English lit boys and the posh boys now at your studies. What's the right word? He's multifunctional, can play 3 positions, can play left wing, right wing, can play a 9, has the adaptability, to play in so many positions. I think Grant really likes that type of player. Just like, Grant McCann, the player, was a certain type of midfielder. You would almost say he had flair. He liked the goal, he liked an assist, whatever. Grant McCann, the manager, likes a hard-working midfielder. Two very different people. You know what I mean? So, and I do my best to give that manager what he wants. Hence Ben Thompson came to the building. Do you know what I mean? And Hector was a project. And him and Cliff love Hector. Love him to bits. I think like the upside in Hector in 20 is like sky's the limit. So that's where we were over the 10, the wide player, the dip. Because I can see the comments. I see people calling me Daz Moody, you Levi, whatever else. A bit like, I remember when we signed Poku, and I think Levi, you'd made a comment at the time, waste of money, and the 23.
I didn't say that.
Well, listen, maybe you didn't. I apologize if you didn't. If anyone out there can find it on Twitter where he said,
I know I said about Poku. I said we didn't need to sign both Poku and Randall because one of them would never get much game time.
Fair play. So I always said, give him a bit of time. I honestly think Poku will be sensational. And if you watch Hull in pre-season, where we battered them, their full-strength team in the final game, 2 things stood out to me. 1, it was a 4-3-3 we played. And 2, Poku was sensational. I don't know if any of you guys were at that game. I mean, that was Hull's full-strength side. Hull were fucking devastated because that was like meant to be their warm-up to the season. And the Friday before our first game of the season, Poku gets fucking injured. And he was like, him and Randall were sensational in pre-season. And I know the manager was like, them on either side are Ricky instead of Randall. That was his whole mindset, with one striker in the middle. And we played Cheltenham. We started with a 4-3-3. Ricky was on the wrong side. We didn't have Poku. We're 2-0 down at half-time. The baby goes out with the bathwater, and we're back to 3 at the back, and we win 3-2. And suddenly that's the 4. But it was always about a 4-3-3. and having that flexibility and enough of it wide, because the manager made it very clear to me, your wide players, sometimes you run them hard, you're going to need plenty of them because they can get injured. The amount of running we're going to expect from these players, the durability might be an issue. So you have to have that flexibility to bring an Ajibowie in instead of a Poku, to bring an Efron Clark in instead of a Ricky, to bring a Randall in instead of one. You have to have that cover. So when everyone always laughs and says we're like Winger United, well, no, not really. We're a 4-3-3 team, and we want to have nearly 2 people for every position and a spare. Does that make sense to you guys? So that's
to be fair, we've got like 3 wingers for every position and a spare. Like we've started. This is what I can't understand, right? We started game on Saturday, which obviously we won. I don't think we'll win too many games, tough games this season with Joe Ward and Burrows playing fullbacks, right? I can't understand the Burrows thing at all. Burrows obviously got some games at the start of the season last year. He looked really good. He scored against Derby, scored against Cardiff. He was playing up the pitch. He was putting some good balls in the box. He looks a really talented young player.
Sure.
We've then seemed determined ever since, under 2 managers now, and I'm not sure why, to just stall his career. He's not a left back. McCann himself said last season he's not a left back. He's now playing left back. He's played left wing back at times. Sure. He looks lost on the pitch defensively playing left back. He's not doing a good job. This is not me criticising Burrows. I really like Burrows. I think he's a good player. I don't want to see Burrows further forward. Joe Ward, same thing. Joe Ward is a winger. Joe Ward is not a right back. He can fill in a right back for sure. Joe Ward himself tweeted about 3 weeks ago, I'm not a right back, but he's playing right back. So we've got these 2 really talented wingers who we're sort of playing at fullback, which, yes, it worked against Portobello Wolf on Saturday. But, I can't understand why, with Burrows particularly.
I don't think Harrison's a winger or a left back. I don't think he's a winger either. I don't think in the way the manager wants to play, he has the pace to play winger. I think where the manager sees him as left-sided central midfield. That's where he sees him he can play. He has the ability, the technical ability to play in there. And I think, yes, the conversation about why they're playing right back and left back. I saw on Saturday, it was Alan Swan was like, Ward gets pushed further forward, he scores a goal. But okay, fine. So if you're playing 4-3-3, is it Ward or Pocket? Or how do you in some games get both of them in the game? I understand. You're going to play tough games. You play Sheffield Wednesday away. Do you want Poku and Ward, right back and left and right wing? There's going to be games where you can play both. Blackpool at home last season, you got them playing there, and you're a lot more offensive minded. So you might have to, at times, take one out of the team. Not a problem. I don't tell the manager to play Harrison Burrows at left back or left wing back. All I know is he can do that. And yeah, he didn't start the season well. The last couple of games, I think he's been a lot better. I think the manager and his staff think he's been a lot better. His numbers have been a lot better. He was very good defensively against Bolton. And he certainly didn't let us down on Saturday against Port Vale. And he's a young player who's hit highs and hit lows. Now, if Dan Butler's fully fit, very happy for Dan Butler to play there. We think he's a fantastic left back. The decision was made, okay, we're sitting down. We've now got a couple of things we've got to get through. One is we've got a hole in the budget. 2 is we have financial fair play of 60%. I have to bring in 5 players you want, but I have to also be able to get rid of players to get those players in. So you want X amount in midfield, you want X amount in forward areas, whatever else. Where can we make decisions to go, can we get away with doing this, which allows us to then invest in keeping that player or getting the player in that position? We can't have everything, Levi. It just doesn't work that way.
First of all, I get this all the time. I don't have unrealistic expectations. I don't expect us to be in the Championship at the end of the season. I don't expect us to be selling Schmodix for whatever and then spending all that money on new players. Selling Schmodix was the right thing to do, 100%. Like that's not an issue with me. I just don't understand why. We've certainly wasted a lot of money recently.
Who hasn't?
Yeah, but on players like Randall, who in my opinion,
too early, Levi. You're too early.
I disagree, but we'll see about that.
Look, all I'll say to you is he's played 10 games for us. You're too early. If I'm going to write players off after 10 games, there's a lot of players who wouldn't have become legends for football.
Fine, but then we have Ajibowie, Mason Clark, Randall, Ward, Burrows, Poku, Ricky JJ. They're all playing the same players. So when are these all going to, if these players are all going to be sort of, potential superstars, when are they going to play these games? They're not going to get play games. Ajibowie can't even get a game in the, Checkers Race Trophy at the moment. He's still playing under 21 football. So
you have to also understand that at any time, I mean, you saw last season when we had injuries, what happened to us when we were short and we didn't have certain positions covered or whatever else. The manager wants flexibility. He wants wingers. He wants wide players who can attack and score. At the moment, it's Ricky and Poku, and they've done well the last 2 games. You never get excited because it's a couple of games, but they've got a lot of upside. Next week, it could be Randall and Ajibowie, and it could be Efren Mason-Clark playing 9. He hasn't really played wide so far. The odd substitute appearance, I think he's put him at left wing back, and that's just late in the game trying to chase a game to get an attacking player on. But I think he predominantly sees him potentially as a 9. So I'm not going to question a manager who's won a title I've never won. I'm certainly not going to question a manager who kept a very average Hull team in the Championship before he was let go under new ownership. So my manager says, I like that player. He can play left, right, but actually I see him as a 9. Who am I to question that? If he wants, is everyone still there? Are they all gone?
No, we hear you.
So you think we have too many players in those positions? The season's a long season, Levi. I don't necessarily agree with that. You think Randall's a bust? Because I once said he could be worth 20 million. You know, he's played less than 10 games for the club. You know, this is a player who moved from the area he's from, he's young, from his family, and had a horrible time last year. He had a horrible time with injury. He had a horrible time off the pitch. It was a disaster. But we can exasperate that by just calling him shit all the time and just saying, like, completely write him off. But I don't write young people off, Levi. Even though we've had our issues, I'd never write you off. You know, you're an intelligent young man. But if somebody wrote you off like that after 10 minutes on the job, I'm sure you'd have a problem with that. So all I'd say there is, I get you're a fan and you have your right to go, he's shit and I don't rate him and I don't like him and Ronnie's this and da-da-da-da. It's all about, you know, fans' opinions. Opinions are a good thing. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone has one, you know. But at the end of the day, to say after 10 games or whatever, nah, then you might be right. If he doesn't break through this season, yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, we've spent a lot of money on this young player. Hasn't happened. We've wasted money on it. I think we've got it right more than we've got it wrong. You're going to say we've wasted money on players? Yeah, of course. With our policy and the way we do things, there's going to be spillage. There's going to be wastage.
Can I ask you, Darragh, I know the answer is, you know, ideally 100% before I ask the question, but, you know, do you have a target success rate on the folks that you bring in, knowing that, you know, you look at baseball, for example, you know, if someone hits it 3.5 times out of 10, then they're the best in the country at what they do, the best in the world at what they do. Like, do you have a target hit success rate when you're bringing players in, especially when you're investing in so many young players, when you don't really know, you know, there's a trajectory that you can't map out where they're going to go over the course of their career when they're so young.
So many things come into it. Can be injuries, personal circumstances, mental issues. All those things can come into it. It's very difficult. You know, you sign players and you think, I've got a winner here, and then something can happen. Do you know what I mean? Just things can happen. But yeah, we do. We have a percentage that we hit, that we like to hit all the time. And there's no perfect science to it. And of course there's spillage. Of course there's players we sign and go, shit, you know, it didn't quite work out. George Grant, people would say, was a bust last year. I would say, yeah, he didn't work out. You know, maybe not good enough for the champ. Cost us nothing. We made 270 grand. Okay. So it's not a success. It's not a bust. You know, other players, people say, well, Tyrone Barnett, we spent £1 million on him. Well, if you've seen him in the first 5 games, everyone thought we had the next Ricky Lambert. You know, and he was going to be sensational. Again, I can't speak for character, but he was given the opportunity, and we brought him in, and we thought he'd be a big success. That's the way football goes. There's no perfect science to it. You can't get it right all of the time. You have to get it right most of the time. So it's not all of the time. But you know, let me ask you a question, Phil. You watch a lot of League One, League Two football. Mm-hmm. Did you think Joel Randall would be a success or a failure at Peterborough based on you seeing him 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, I thought that it was a no-brainer to step up, you know, because he outperformed. He was one of the best players in League Two that I saw. And I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't gone as you expected. I know we talked to Ryan about, and Ryan was exactly the same. Like, that's a good one you've got there.
You speak to everyone at that level who's seen him again and the top end of that level over 18 months. And, you know, we were actually surprised he came to us. So I understand Levi and Daz and everyone else will say, but the £1 million we could have spent elsewhere. Well, not really, because we spent 200 grand a year over 5 years. So it wasn't £1 million that we had straight away to go into the budget. People say, well, you wasted that in the budget. No, if you look at the way I've just spread it out, it's actually 200 grand. So no, not really. You couldn't have taken that money and got in 3 experienced players on 10 grand a week. It doesn't work like that. Not to mention those players on 10 grand a week didn't want to come to Peterborough United. So there was a lot of that in the Championship. It's very different from 10 years ago when we were last there. We heard a lot of no's. We heard a lot of not interested in talking. We had a lot of people coming and seeing us, still not interested. You know, that's just the way it goes when you have to go and show people you can stay in the champ. Once you get to year 2 and year 3 and you have a record, then they're a bit happier to talk to you. So really, really difficult. So all I'd say to Levi there is don't write Randall off too quickly. He was our best player in pre-season. Now, pre-season's pre-season. Yeah, I know you. I can see your face there. Pre-season. He was one of our best players in pre-season. And unfortunately, I think he had an issue after game 1 again. And everyone's like, well, he's made of glass. He's made of this, made of that. You know, you'd laugh. Last week, we had an indoor game. The 2 strong 11s. 3-2 was the score. He scored a hat-trick. You know, the week before they had a game, 2-1. Guess who scored both the goals? Randall. He needs to take that into games. He needs to score a goal. He gets 1, he goes. You know, against Plymouth, I don't know if you remember, he went around like 5 players. Should have scored. Didn't. It's moments like that sometimes. It's inches. And you just wish it would fall for a player like that because he's a great kid. And he's had a hard time. And I'll defend him till the cows come home for the stuff he's been through. So I'm willing to give him a bit longer. And I'm willing not to write him off so quickly. But as a fan, I get it. You're entitled to write people off.
But, I mean, it comes back to my initial point, which is that Randall, we've got all these talented young players. I don't see how Randall's going to get the amount of game time this season in order to make to sort of, you know, show the player he may or may not be. Because there's several players above him in the pecking order right now. You know,
not really. I mean, that's an easy one because Ricky, he's 19. He's not always been durable. He's not always played 50 games a year. He will eventually. But the odds are he won't play 50 games this year. So Randall's competing with Ricky on that side. I don't see a competition with Harrison Burrows. So who else is he competing with on the left side?
Well, obviously, first of all, it depends on us playing. I mean, I disagree with us playing 4-3-3, by the way. But manager wants to play that. I understand that. But I don't necessarily see it as it has to be sort of, you know, Poku has to play right. I mean, I would play Poku and Ward in the same team for sure. I wouldn't just necessarily have that because they're both playing on the right hand side.
How would you have Poku? Would you have Poku coming in from the left?
Yeah, well, to me, Ward has to play as a sort of, you know, on the right of 3, and therefore I have Poku. Now, I know Poku prefers to play on the right, but Ward is one of our best players in my opinion. Therefore, Ward.
Listen, Joe's brilliant. He's brilliant, but he's not durable. All right, so Joe's brilliant. Like he's played, you know, he's been with us how many years? He's got 200 games. But if you look at last time in League One, I think Joe was in the team of the season and he only played 28 times. Kanu played like 20 odd times in Joe's position to help. That's, you know, fair play to Kanu. Everyone slagged them off, but he stepped up and played right wing back. Because Darren Ferguson played with obviously wing backs. And I love Joe to bits, but he misses games. So again, you're talking about like players playing in wing. We've got too many players or whatever else. You know, Ricky has had durability issues. We're improving it. Joe has had a few issues, ankles, knees, whatever else. He's not always guaranteed to play 45 games in the season. So you need those players. You need to be able to give the manager what he needs.
So ultimately what you're doing from a recruitment perspective is you're looking at how do I get the games that I need into each position and how many players does that translate into for that position? And some positions it may translate into 2, others it may translate into 3 as long as you've got the budget to cover it. Yeah, but you're kind of estimating at the start of the season how many games you think you're going to get out of each player.
Absolutely. And I think the manager could play Ricky, John and Poku. And I think if he wanted to on Saturday, he could play Randall, Jack Marriott, and Joe Ward. Or he could play another 3 and throw Ajiboye in there. I think he's got good flexibility. Grant likes a 4-3-3. He won the league with a 4-3-3. People always return to the scene of the crime. It's normal in sales. It's normal in sports. What works for them, works for them. So I can't argue with that. If my manager says I want to play 4-3-3, I know everyone likes to accuse me of picking a team and pick whatever. I can't turn around and go, fuck off, Gaffer, we're playing 3 at the back. It won't work like that. So I then have to, you know, instead of like square pegs and round holes, I have to try and do my best to give him the tools. We talk about the fullbacks. That was the big argument before. We had Nathan Thompson and we had Benji. And then we had Joe Ward. And we had Joe Tomlinson who could play left or right back. So we felt like we had 4 right back options. You're playing 4-3-3. Nathan can play there. Benji can play there. And Benji's had historical issues, but we had high hopes for Benji. Then at left back, you had, well, Dan's going to be back. And we were told he was going to be back by July. And then we had a setback near the end of July. He wasn't going to be back till September. I can't plan for that when that happens last minute. Joe Tomlinson, the manager and the staff really liked, based on what they've seen him through pre-season. And they felt Harrison, if they did go with a 3 at the back, phenomenal wing back, left back, get away with it at times. So, you know, I can't go out and sign another 2 fullbacks and then end up with 6 of them in the building because I can't get it all into the same wage bill. None of you guys have ever tried to add up in a calculator and you're told you're allowed to spend this and this is how you make it work. It's difficult sometimes, so you do your best.
So I want to bring John and Bucks into the conversation. John, I want to let you respond to anything that Darragh has said so far, but I also know that you had a couple of questions around the loan strategy as well to cover today.
Yeah, so just to start off with, for me personally, like you've touched on having all that depth in the forward positions, and for me, that's kind of not a problem. You can never have too many good players. So if we've got a lot of good players, we can rotate them. But you've touched on the fullbacks there, and you've talked to Joe Ward, Benji Mensah, who we've not even seen. Like, it's hard to call him a first-team player at the minute because he's not even making the squads. We've then got Thompson, who has a pretty susceptible to injuries and suspension.
Sure.
So for me, if we've recruited for a 4-3-3, we don't have really much cover at all at right back because McCann doesn't seem to fancy Tomlinson. And then left back, I'm with Levi. I don't class Burrows as a left back at all. I don't think he can play there. And even McCann, I actually went back and listened to his interview from the last game of last season, and he said he's not going to play there next season. So I guess my question to you was, did McCann want a fullback this summer? Did he ask for one?
So we sat down at the end of May and we went through all options, and there was not one fullback identified. That was
fair enough.
There was not. You can ask BBC to ask Grant McCann. There was no fullbacks identified, bar one right back that was identified if we didn't get a further forward player, because they could again do a bit of both. That was the only one that was identified. So it was a similar situation to Joe Ward. We honestly felt Dan Butler would be back. Grant honestly felt very strong about Harrison playing left back. I think the Blackpool game changed a lot of his mindset, and rightly so. We had, I think it was Harrison left back, Joe Ward right back, and we battered Blackpool. Yes, it was a nothing game. We still beat them 5-0. We were very explosive, very attacking. I think we did well against, was it Nottingham Forest and Blackburn? I think he had Sammy Schmoddix at right back against Blackburn. And I think he felt we could get away with it in League One. Now, that's not us being arrogant. We just felt with the players we had, until Dan Butler was up to speed, and he's a very durable player, Dan, that, it wouldn't be an issue. And then Harrison could move inside and be one of the midfield corps. So instead of going and spending more money in areas, that we would be stacked in, it would be fine. Benji Mensah, he hasn't been the most durable, but he's a young player. They come through it. Do you know what I mean? Nathan Thompson, last time we were in League One, not a problem. Played a lot of the season. Not an issue. Do you know what I mean? Came back pre-season in the best shape of his life. He was unbelievable. Lost weight, great shape. Again, it's bad luck sometimes. But you watch us yesterday or on Saturday, was it an issue? No. Now you go watch us against MK Dons. Could it be an issue? Maybe. But I do know our better players, like your Dan Butlers of the world, they're close. So this is an issue we'll leave behind.
I think the other question on if we've recruited for a 4-3-3 is, do you think we have the central defensive options? Because for me, Ronnie works better in a 3. I don't think he's quite got the aerial. I love Ronnie. I think he's brilliant. Don't get me wrong. But I think when he has been found out, he's played in a 2, right? Those have been the games where he's struggled more. And I don't think either Knight or Kent particularly complement him in a 2. I don't think either of them are particularly commanding in the air and compensate for his own. Ronnie doesn't have too many weaknesses, but if there is one, it's that physicality. You saw it against Cheltenham and he got dominated by Nlundlu.
So again, John.
Nlundlu, is that the name? I feel like it's close. I feel like it's close. The big one.
let me correct you there. So the last 8 games in the championship, I think we'd won every other game, and we had a good points tally. And our best football, we played forward to back in lots of the games, and Ronnie played in them. To the point where I think it was Nottingham Forest we played. Ronnie was in a 2. Steve Cooper loves him. I think he's played for England in a 2 many times. I think you can end up pigeonholing and coming up with things and sayings, and things stick with players. Can't play in a 2, isn't great in the air, can't do this, can't do that. I disagree. I don't disagree about we could be better in the air. Josh Knight and Frankie Kent aren't mugs, but they could do better in the air for sure. Yeah. Definitely Josh Knight. I mean, if Josh shows the form we all know he has, one of the best centre-backs in League One. Just obviously he likes to start season slowly. Now he's back in the team. He's obviously, confident. Frankie.
Sorry, I was going to say, Ronnie Edwards. I know everyone's talking to Ronnie Edwards. I can't believe he didn't sell Ronnie Edwards. I really can't believe he didn't sell him. When we got the bid on deadline day, for me, I'm looking at Posh's team, thinking Josh Knight, Frankie Kent, 90% of the league take those two as a centre back pairing over the season, right? And then you've brought in the lone guy who should be fit soon as a left-sided back. So those three centre backs with someone like Thompson filling in if needed, or even one would have been fine. But I'm worried now. Knight and Kent. Last two games, it looked a really, really solid pairing. I thought they looked pretty solid in the Championship too. I think they played together. Derby, Reading, and Preston. We scored 2 goals in 3 games. We didn't do well up front, but defensively they did well. I'm now worried that Posh at some point. I'm not an idiot. I'm going to say Ronnie Edwards. I know we're going to say Ronnie Edwards. We need to say Ronnie Edwards. Ronnie Edwards is going to have to come in the team. If you want to play forward at the back, we've now got Ronnie Edwards, who we need to put in the shop window. I'm not criticising that. We do need to do that. And we've got a lone centre-back who's going to be expected to play. Now we've got 2 really good centre-backs in League One who we've spent quite a bit of money on, who I'm, sort of looking down the line thinking sort of first chance we get probably won't be playing. I just can't understand why we haven't sold Ronnie Edwards in the summer and gone with what we have and, brought another one in like we have done and said that's absolutely fine for League One level. I really can't understand that.
Because the bid wasn't good enough.
Well, we'll see. But I mean, are you not?
The bid wasn't good enough. So, at the end of the day, we have a valuation. I could have sold Ivan Toney 6 months prior to Luton or Barnsley. The bid wasn't good enough. I set the bids. If the bid's not good enough, we're not going to sell the player. And, the club who tried to buy him even said to us, look, we're taking the piss because we're getting in before the big boys. They're all busy and they're going to come back in January with bigger money. So we're just trying to take the piss. I get that. And my answer was, look, we'll do it for this, but we got to have the player back. That was always part of the deal to give us that, because at the time we're playing 3 at the back. Suddenly we're going 3 at the back and it's like, fuck, now we need 5 centre halves. We need to make sure we're covered. Now we're playing 2 at the back. You can go, well, hang on. You got Frankie, you got Josh. Nathan can fill in their worst case. You got, obviously, Manny Fernandez is fit next week. And you got Charlie O'Connell, who's a very talented young player coming through, who could play very comfortably in there. And you've got the new boy Watt from Newcastle. So now suddenly you've got a mirage of centre-backs in the building. And let me just dispel the myth. Grant McCann doesn't need to play Ronnie Edwards to sell him. He could sit in the bench till January and I'll still sell him. Do you know what I mean? If Frankie and Josh are keeping clean sheets every week, I would expect the manager to keep the same team. And I know he's that type of manager. So he's under no duress to Ronnie's got to go back in that team because we need the money. It's not how I operate. Ronnie will leave and we will sell him. And he'll play higher up. And one day you'll be able to tell your grandchildren, look, I took the piss out of him for many years, but what a wonderful player for England he was. Whatever. A lot of people out there rate the boy, including the guy from the under-19s who's been moved up to the 20s in England who absolutely fucking loves him. Do you know what I mean? A lot of top managers love him, but it's difficult to go to their chairman and go, we want to give Peterborough X amount of millions of pounds for a League One player. It doesn't always work so easy like that. Timing's everything. So I turned down the deal. It wasn't the right deal. And we'll get a better deal for Ronnie. But again, that'll all happen in due course. And I get you don't rate him as a player. You're entitled to not rate him.
I don't rate. Ronnie Edwards at League One level is okay. He's not one of our better central defenders. Knight and Kent are both better than him. We will be a stronger team without Ronnie Edwards in it. But at League One level, he's definitely he'd get into other teams in the league, no doubt.
We'll take him at. We'll take him at Bradford if he's available.
Listen,
well, that might be more his level. I'm not sure.
I play football manager as well, Levi. All right, sorry? So I play football manager as well, Levi.
I haven't got time for that these days. But, if I had him, I'd be selling him straight away. But
So let me, because I know we're running short on time, and we've got
all the world. Give me more.
We've got a lot of stuff that I know that we're not ultimately going to get to, but I want to make sure everyone's kind of main concerns and questions and comments and everything are brought forward. I'm going to come back to you, John, in a minute because we didn't get to talk about loans. But Books, you've been sitting kind of patiently listening to all the conversation and the debate, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to come in with your own 2 pence.
I have very little issues with, as everyone knows, with how the clubs run. I see, I don't see the need to disagree with what they're saying because I can see it when he talks. Most of the time, I can see exactly where he's coming from. It makes sense. I don't, all these conspiracy theories, the people that are coming in on him, they never have any facts. It's just just nonsense that they're talking, and that's what frustrates me. So I don't need to be here. Darragh's obviously the best man to be talking about that stuff. He can give the facts and figures, but it's when you go back to the Twitter life, and I know it shouldn't even really bother me, but you go back to it, and they'll hear all this, and we'll still be getting, no, but he's lying. He's like, it's just related. But this is, again, I was round the ground on Saturday, and I've not been on .net for years, but I spoke to some people, and obviously about this episode has made it onto the fansforum.net, and it made me realise that Twitter is a minority, and the minority, then the people who are anti-Darragh are then a minority on top of that. We're talking such a small. I find it frustrating. I find it frustrating the way people go about things. Like Levi and his pals there. For me, there's ways to go about things. When you're going in on Darragh, call it the arrogant estate agent, the lion. I just find it disrespectful for a guy that's done so much for our football club. And we've been talking even in this podcast about League One and 8th in League One. Darragh, I remember the season before you came in was the big Ron manager thing. I mean, Christ, anyone who wants to see what life was like, because I realise now you've been here 17 years now. Anyone who's 22 doesn't even know a time that you weren't at the helm, because that's 5 years old. They didn't even know what it was like before. You go on YouTube, watch Big Ron Manager, and watch what a shit show of a club we had before Darragh. I mean, it frustrates.
Look, there's a generation of youngsters who are, I guess, probably 17 to 22, 23, and they're just used to winning. That's not a bad thing. They win. They want the club to be promoted. They're used to Championship, League One, top of League One. And I guess, I can see it sometimes. They're the ones who get overly aggressive. Not Levi and his pals. They can call me whatever estate agent they want. But you get other ones who come at me, and I'm thinking, your parents have done a terrible fucking job. Like, you're 17, 18, and the idea of my 17-year-old would out insulting people on social media, that's fucking silly. And that's half of the problem. There is that little, bunch out there who just go OTT. As regards to Levi or Ian Gow or some of these people, look, that's life. You like people, you dislike people. There's no problem with that. It's not against the law. You want to call me an estate agent? No problem. Have at it. I'm an estate agent. I'm lucky I can sell houses the level I could. Gives a fuck. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? I can't help that. It's not a popularity contest. I can just be me.
At the end of the day, you're going to get that with every club. We have it with my club. And, it's not helped that we've been in League Two for God knows how many years. And, we have a generation of fans as well that started supporting us when we were in the Premier League. I mean, we're in the Premier League 2 years, of our, since 1917 or something like that. But those are the 2 years they started supporting us. So therefore, that's what they became to know as what they should expect. And then you take the tumble down the leagues and, there's an expectation that we should be a bigger club than potentially we are. Yeah. So I do think that you're going to get that. And, we wouldn't be being a football fan if we didn't have a grumble. Every now and then.
It's really weird. Ian Gow, for example, I met him once outside Doncaster. We just won a game against Doncaster. We scored, I want to say it was the Hartlepool boy scored as one and only fucking goal for us, whatever. It was like 2-0. Connor Washington scored the second one. Grant was like in temporary charge with Aaron McLean and Dave Robertson. And I've travelled all the way to Donny. And I've come out of the game and this family walk over and hug me and like take pictures and say hello. And it's Ian Gow. It's pretty much the only time I've ever personally met him. And I don't know whether it's the Fergie things, I keep hiring his favourite manager back. I don't know where it got to the point where it's like pure hatred. I've never known a middle-aged man act like that in my life because I'm a middle-aged man and I've got children. I don't know. I don't know how I pissed on his cornflakes somehow, but it becomes a bit obsessive and weird. And so I really don't understand what. Maybe you could sit with me one day and say, this was the stage when I decided I was going to obsess over you and call you the estate agent or whatever else. I don't get it. But like I said, the only
you got rid of his last obsession, didn't you? So he needed a new one, I'm assuming, a new reason not to come.
Yeah, I get it. I don't know. Does he even come to games anymore? I don't know.
Levi could probably answer. I don't think he does.
I'll tell you this, but Ian, he goes to games about as much as does Moody. So you can.
How's go again? Does he go?
Ian goes. I saw he went. I saw Ian at Coventry last year. I know Ian, by the way. I know Ian and Daz. Yeah, Ian goes a bit. To be fair to Ian, he watches his son play football on Saturday afternoon. His son plays sort of Peterborough leagues at 2 p.m. He goes and watches that most weeks.
Weird.
So let's move on. Segue into John. I just want to give you the chance to, I know beforehand you shared a bunch of questions. I think we've covered a lot of them in the conversation today. But if there's anything that you wanted to get off your chest, you wanted to put to Darragh about the recruitment, or really any other area, because I know that you haven't had so much of a chance to post some of the things that you sent me in advance. I wanted to give you the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, no, like you say, I think a lot of it has been covered. And I should just state that obviously I'm on here taking a bit of a critical approach to the questions. But in general, I think Posh get a lot right with their recruitment policy. I'm fully behind young and hungry. I think that's exactly right. I don't buy into the experience. And for me, we have a squad that should be in the top 6. And I think if we had gone and nailed it, we could have won the league. Now, we still might, and I might look stupid, but I think there's a couple of key positions where we look a little weak. Now, there's other things that we've done brilliantly, like the goalkeepers. I was completely wrong about. I thought I called it that we'd made a mistake and we needed a bit more experience in there, and we got 2 unproven ones. But fair play, Bergstrom looks an unbelievable signing, and whoever scouted him, absolutely top work. But for me, there's one. I guess you've alluded to it, Phil. There's one sort of issue. Maybe issue is not the right terminology, but when we talk about loans, you've mentioned before that Posh won't ever sign an attacking player on loan, or the policy is that no loan players come in.
Unless we can buy them with an option.
Yeah, in the forward positions. But I don't know, would you ever consider changing that? Because you look at someone like Morgan Rogers at Lincoln, and he was a massive help for them. Dane Scarlett at Portsmouth won in the game, scored 2 goals out of nothing. If that quality is available, do you not think it hurts Posh if we can go and, not saying Dane Scarlett was the one for us because we've got Marriott and Clark Harris, but if there is a player of that quality available on loan, maybe we should shift and go and get them if the right player comes available?
No. But when I leave or whatever, maybe the next people will do. But no, I'm here. And I'll tell you why. So, for example, this summer, you're 4-3-3, you're playing with one striker. So I was told it's either going to be Marriott or Jono. Occasionally, you're going to have both of them in the team. So you go and get the boy from Tottenham. He's third fiddle. So do you get the boy from Tottenham as third fiddle, or as Joe Taylor get a bit of experience and time with the squad, and he could eventually be third fiddle? Do you back your academy? Do you back your process? The other thing I'd say there is you mentioned that Lincoln have had some amazing young players. Brendan Johnson. They had the boy from Man City. What happened that season Lincoln had them? Did they go up?
They didn't.
So at the end of the season when they didn't go up and they'd had a right go, who did they sell to cover the hole? Did they sell anyone? No.
What, George Grant?
No, they didn't. George Grant was zero to sell him. Right. So did they sell anyone and bring any money in to pay for the disappointment of not going up? No. What happened the following season to them?
Well, they finished mid-table, towards the bottom.
Okay. So did that loan policy work?
No, but on the same token, they had more than one, right? I'm talking about one quality player. If Portsmouth, for instance, don't go up this season, lose Dane Scarlett, they're not going to finish in the bottom half of League One next season. They'll still probably be punching above their weight in.
Things happen in football very quickly. Things happen. I remember Ian Gow was having a go at me years ago when Gillingham were top of League One. Look at Gillingham, they can do that. Look where we are, 7th, 8th in League One, and blah 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 blah. Where's Gillingham now? Things happen very quickly in football. Things move quickly. And my insurance always for our football club is that big sale we occasionally need, and it's usually in the forward areas. If we bring a number 9 in from Tottenham and I have to pay $3,000 a week to Tottenham and pay for the players' accommodation and everything else, Tottenham are going to insist he plays at least a good percentage of games. That means a Marriott won't play, or a Clark Harris won't play, or one of our own players coming through won't play. I'd rather think of the long-term health of the football club than a short-term hit of, oh, we're in the top 6 and we're promotion runners and doing okay. The boy goes back to Tottenham. He gets his move to the Championship next year. Happy days. It's just one of them in those areas where I think we can make more money from selling a forward player that's our own player than bringing a player in from another club. Now, if that club allows me an option where I can buy the player at the end of the deal, all day fucking long I'll sign the player. Do you know what I mean? I'll be up for that, as long as the cows come home. History will show if I'm wrong, right, or whatever else. I just feel it's better us owning those players in those areas of the park, because there's a lot more value in selling a striker than, say, a goalkeeper. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, a lot more money. One good striker pays for possibly 2 years' budgets. You know, like Ivan Toney's sale paid for the promotion the following year. You know, and that, it goes a long way. You know what I mean? And if Ivan had been on loan from Newcastle wanted to loan him to us, and I said no. Everyone else was like, let's do the loan. Steve Evans, the loan. I'm like, fuck no. We're buying him or he ain't coming. And he nearly went to Scunthorpe on loan. And it was only because we convinced him to come to us. Thank fuck. Because he'd have scored the goals, he'd have gone back to Newcastle, and we'd be like, you know, that is my issue with it. Look, I get what you're saying, but for me, it's a no-no. Next person's up in the job, if that happens, maybe they'll change the policy. Who knows?
All right. I want to open it up and think, you know, we're coming to the end, but I do want to make sure that everyone's had the chance to say and ask any questions that they may still have. So let's go around the table one last time. Levi, is there anything we haven't touched on today that you'd like to?
One question, which is on pricing. First of all, I understand that a lot to do with football pricing is a football problem, whether you want to call it that, not a Peterborough problem. But, you know, someone sort of goes to games sort of all across the country and watches sort of, there's a lot of away games. I was looking this morning and I'm pretty sure Posh have the most expensive away ticket price in the league. Away fans sometimes get the Desco. A lot of the time they're stuck in a pretty old stand, wooden seats, pillars obstructing half the pitch, and then they're expected to pay the most expensive ticket price in the league for that experience. I'm wondering, what is it about coming to Posh that means that ticket price is justified?
Don't know. It's not really my area. I don't spend a lot of time on the ticket pricing. I don't spend a lot of time on the strategy. You'd have to get into that with Jason, I'd say, in a bit more detail. You know, he spends a lot of time talking to Chris. In defence, I would say, what is it, 27 quid? Is that what the price of the ticket is?
27 and 29 quid on match day.
I think, is it safe to say inflation's 12, 13%?
It's a lot wherever it is, yeah.
So is it safe to say energy bills have gone through the roof? Everything's like costing a lot more money?
Yeah, but, you know, this is the same for everyone, right? Posh are the most expensive in the league. You know, there's lots of clubs who are probably in a worse sort of financial position than us.
Yes, tranquila, all right? Calm down. I hear your question. I'm just trying to say, my point is, we haven't put the prices up 15, 20%. We've come down from the champ. Yes, they're high at 27 or 28 quid. They've been like that for a few years now, I think, in League One, between 25 and 28 quid. I always get the same fans moaning every away game about how shit the stand is, how costly it is. Listen, in an ideal world, fill up the Desco, and you get the Desco. It's a beautiful stand. You know what I mean? And then you might be happier, but that's the price of football. I go and take my kids to an NFL game. It's $400 for like 3 hours of NFL football. I don't personally think 25 quid or 27 quid is a lot of money for a game of football for a couple of hours entertainment. I think you'd spend a lot more money in a cinema or a bowling alley nowadays with inflation. So that's my opinion on it.
Okay, I disagree, but fine. And the other thing I want to say is the match day tax thing. I think it's not good in the modern world. I think there's so many people who are not sure if they're working. People don't work Monday to Friday like they used to do. They're people not sure if they're working or not. Quite often I will find out sort of, maybe not so much now, but a couple of years ago, I was regularly finding out sort of last minute if I could get to a game or not. And to just sort of chuck in 2 quid extra, especially when the ticket prices are quite high in the first place. I feel like that's something that should be looked at. I don't think it's fair.
Agree with you. I don't disagree. You're hearing me in full agreement with you, but I'm not getting that decision. But I agree with you. I argue all the time. I hate the fact that people on match day might not come up on a day and like the old ticket games. That drives me up the wall. When we go all ticket where you've got to buy in advance and you can't buy on a day. I'm a sales guy. I think of, as you say, real estate sales guy. I think of the money you're losing. You know what I mean? If those 10 people on a Saturday who want to come, it's 200 quid, it's 300 quid if they buy a pie or whatever else. So it's lots of things I agree with, but that's the world we live in and that's the way it is right now as it is. So, and like I said, you will say, well, the price is really expensive. I would always say, I actually think football outside of, particularly in the lower leagues, I actually think, I'm a dad, I've got 3 kids. I don't know if any of you have kids, but the stuff that's a lot more expensive that's not as entertaining as football. You don't know how lucky you've got it, Levi. When you get kids, listen, we don't know if you're a Jaffa, but when you have kids in the future or whatever else, all right, you will see how expensive it is with children when you go outside of football to other events.
Well, I know expensive. You know, I've got a brother who's many years younger than me. I do a lot of stuff with him. I know expensive it is. He's 16 now.
Is he a posh fan?
Yeah, he comes sort of 25, 30 games a season for sure. He loves it, to be fair. But and I enjoy he's my brother, and sort of I get to sort of spend money on him and do that, which I really love. But I do understand how expensive things are. I agree with you. Cinemas, would I rather spend 35 quid for me and my brother at a cinema? Of course, I'd rather watch football with him. But I do think if looking at people with a family of 3 children, or couples, I do think it's too expensive, and I understand it's a football issue, and people may disagree with me. But for me, it's too much.
Most important question: is your brother a DMAC out or a DMAC in guy?
Do you know what? I don't think he cares. He's do you know what? It's serious. I would want to say that first of all, thanks for bringing me onto the show, because I do appreciate the time, and I think everyone, a lot of my things I tweet, because people sort of come at me all the time, spoiled fan and all of this stuff. I'm not a spoiled fan. I go to the games. I'm over the result by the time I'm back in the car, almost every single time. I don't expect us to be a championship football team next year. If we are, great. If we're not, if we went to League Two, I'd still go and watch football every week. That's genuinely me. It's sort of entertainment on a Saturday afternoon, isn't it? So I think a lot of people want to say about me that I'm sort of this young sort of spoiled fan who doesn't know what it's like before you came. They're right. I don't know what it's like before you came, but I do accept the fact that we are a mid-table League One club, and that's sort of where we are. So just want to get that out there, before people sort of keep telling me that I got these unrealistic expectations, because I really don't.
Well, I think everyone's here as well because they're passionate about the club they support.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes football.
Look, sometimes I can get too personal when I take the piss out of people, on social media. All I'd say to you is sometimes, Levi, you're young, you're impressionable, you got a whole world in front of you, and you probably put a few tweets up at times. You're thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, I wish I hadn't bit there, I hadn't said something, and you wish you could take some back. But they're out there. It is what it is. Do you know what I mean? Just win, lose, or draw, enjoy yourself. Do you know what I mean? And if Ronnie has a good game, say Ronnie had a good game. Sometimes you can be the bigger person and go, do you know what? He had a great game there.
Yeah, but that's Twitter for you, isn't it? Most people see me in person would know I'm relatively most agree with me, but I'm relatively reasonable. But Ronnie Edwards is overrated, so therefore someone's got to make the claim, haven't they?
So. Books, I think you need to come off mute, I think there, but let me bring you in for kind of any final word or last questions for Darragh.
Yeah, well, first of all, Levi, fair play to you, mate, for coming on, because that couldn't have been an easy decision.
Yeah, I know your mates tweeted I wasn't going to show up, so I
think you would. And to be fair, all your mates would have been down the travel agent straight away, mate. They would have on their holidays, like the fans forum, but. Fair play to you, mate. And actually, you've come on and you've made some good points. And actually, I can sit here and actually listen to even the ones I don't agree with. I can sit here and go, actually, well, no, the way you've put it across, and I know Twitter's not real life, so fair dues. But on there, you come across a lot worse. I don't think you do yourself justice on there. But that is what it is. Darragh, I think what I'd say to Darragh is, where are you now in terms of your life in Posh? So, for instance, I know going back years gone by, you were like, I'm good, one day my son will take it over. Probably you probably wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy now, let alone your son. But where are you? Where are you right now? I think a lot of people would like to know that, in terms of, I think it's took its toll on you more lately, and I don't know how you do it, to be honest, mate. I don't know how you take, some of the grief, some of the, and I know it's
You still there, Books? We just lost you.
I got you. So look, the reality is, I said this recently again, honestly, things change for a reason. Things change in life. I've got 2 kids now, like 17, 16. They're at that really important stage for me, college. My wife's brought them up brilliantly, but I have to do my bit now with them to get them to good colleges. That's why we moved to America. I want them to go to like top tier colleges and do really well. I don't want them to be like me and not have a college education. I lasted 7 days of college and I did okay in life, but life's a bit different nowadays. So, you know, the idea of having them in America, get them to good colleges, give them the best chance. So I'm going to spend a lot of time the next 18 months, first with my son, then with my daughter, to get them both to college. So football is not going to be a priority for me as of next summer, with all due respect. You know, my family have taken a backseat to Peterborough for long enough. So next summer, you know, I will not be at the football club. So lots of things people want to know what happens, and, you know, new recruitment ideas and different ideas and you're going to find out.
Is that a temporary thing though? Is that as in you will be taking a back seat, or you will have no involvement with
No, I couldn't own something and not be involved like that. So that would drive me mentally mad. I'm one of them people. I need to be all in. You know, I can't be half in or whatever else. So I will need to sell, and I will need to take a break from football and just go and do my shit with my family. So that's what I will do. Whether it's my partners that buy me out or someone else who buys me out, you know, that is my MO. But I'd like to sign off for the promotion. So, you know, that would be ideal, and move on from there. And as Levi and others have said, you know, now someone else gets a chance to try and get it right in the championship. You know, fair call, no problem. So I'm not happy with what I do. I try my best. So, you know, let's see.
Well, thanks for some great years. Appreciate it.
Save it till the end of the season. Let's get promoted. All right. So, yeah, that's just the reality of the situation. That's life, as you know, kids yourself. And they take the priority. You know, at some stage you have to go, right, my kids. And, you know, I've missed a lot of time with my children because of football. You know, even my third one that was born, the day she was born, I flew out to a Leicester game. Peterborough beat Leicester 2-0 at London Road. Do you remember when we finished second that season? So, yeah, so I can't do that anymore.
John, any last comments or questions before we wrap up?
I'll stick to the question that I was going to ask before you said that.
Sure.
And it was about the contractual situation, mainly of Joe Ward, but in general too. We haven't had sort of a key player sign a long-term contract at Posh for some time now, I would say. We've had sort of Beavers and Pim after we got promoted, but I wouldn't class them as necessarily key players, and I think time has proven that. Why do you think the reason for that is, and can we get an update on Joe Ward, I guess, is my two-part question.
I think the reason is that, you know, you don't want players to be with Peterborough longer than 3 or 4 years. You know, for us to work and the model to work and everything else, 3-4 year cycle, that's how it works. You sell them on, you know, and we move on to the next batch and we try and evolve and develop as a club. If you're in the championship and you're there for a period of time, it's rare even a player would stay a year with a period. If we'd stayed in the champ, say finished 15th, and let's say, I don't know, Clark Harris got 15 goals, or Joel Randall by some miracle played 50 games and got 15 assists. Do you think they're going to be with Peterborough in year 2? Because, you know, when we're in League One, we find it difficult to stop champ clubs plucking our players. If you're in the champ, you got no chance to stop Prem clubs plucking your players. So, you know, we brought in like Clark Harris, Jack Taylor, a lot of them came 2.5 years ago. They're on long-term contracts. The other thing I try and do now is have insurance in contracts and have an option year, if not 2 option years in some of them as well. So who are the next contracts up? One would be Joe Ward. I'm already in the discussions, made an offer to his agent. You know, he says no. I'm negotiating, and then you're back in play. That's normal. Jack Taylor, we would start probably next summer. Jono, we have an option on him as well, so we would again start next summer if he's not sold. And that's really it. There's no one else in there. A lot of the assets and the younger ones and the talent are all on long-term deals, John. I don't spend our money on signing players on 2-year deals. They're usually on 3-4 or 3-4 plus 1. And I think it's a good policy. We don't usually take a bath on any of those contracts. You guys will say, well, Christy Pym, Mark Beavers. Okay. Yeah, we gave out extensions. We were too loyal maybe to some players. You know, hindsight's a great thing. Manager wanted to reward his players. Maybe should have been more ruthless. But, you know, did it for the right reasons. Sometimes you do things for the right reasons, but you get the wrong results. So you can't keep apologizing for trying to do the right thing, can you?
No, you can't.
So there's no perfect science to what we do. We don't always get it right. Sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes people like Levi, Ian Gow, and whatever else enjoy when that happens. I'm joking, Levi. But
I get it right most of the time, to be fair. So.
Listen, I'm sure you do, bud. And listen, in the world you work in, you have to, otherwise people can lose their bollocks, right? So, at the end of the day, he's thinking, how the fuck does he know what I do for a living? So at the end of the day, that's just the way it is. There is no perfect science to what we do. It's like, I'm hearing right now, a friend of mine's just put up a thing. I'm just seeing that up there. Ian Gow has just tweeted out, the estate agent is obsessed with me. See what I'm doing? So either he's listening because Levi's got his phone on over there, and that's why he knows what we're talking about right now, which, if that's true, okay, fine, but at least own up to that. But he's obviously listening, or he's been messaged.
Ian messaged me going, I guarantee Darragh's going to make a mention. Darragh's going to make a comment to me tonight, isn't he?
Look, I'm at the end of the day, Ian Gow's obsessed with me. He's proven it there, proof in the pudding. What can I say? Listen, you get some fucking weirdos out there. There's just another one. Good luck to him, and I hope he's baking his wife a great cake tonight. You know what I mean? But anyway,
if you tried his bacon, I'm sure it would all be forgiven, Darragh. I think that's really the
thing. Let me tell you right now, Levi, he would probably fucking poison me. So there's no way.
Ian genuinely went to a Coventry last year. Ian turns up in the away end with 3 boxes of cakes that he was handing out to everyone in the away end that day. So Ian's a nice guy, but he's got his opinion.
Who's putting messages out that I'm obsessed with him?
So on that note, I guess I'll bring everything to a close here. I do want to thank Levi, Bucks, John for joining us, for being open to the conversation, for sharing some of the areas of concern you had with me beforehand. I hope that we got to cover everything that you wanted to cover. And Darragh, of course, for being a sport and kind of listening and being able to, share your, it's kind of the way that why you've approached. I think that's what's most important. People don't get to see necessarily the reasonings behind why you do the things you do. You may not agree with those, you may agree with those, but at least that's all you can do is put on the table why you do the things that you do.
Hey, I'm a football fan. There's not everything I agree with that Liverpool do. That's just the way it is. Of course, you get frustrated, you get irritated, and if your team's not winning, it's open season. All I'd say there is that occasionally I'll say positive stuff about my football team as well. So when you find yourself, I would always say the acid test for anyone is go and look at your last 10 tweets to do with a subject and ask yourself, do you need to wobble your head? Because if the last 10 tweets you've made about the same subject are just completely negative, wobble your head. Because then you have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? And I say that same to my kids. Sometimes be a bit more positive about everything. Don't always be down on everything. Do you know what I mean? So that wasn't a dig at anyone, by the way. That's just look at it for what it is. Look at the overall picture, But listen, I've enjoyed it. Always happy to do it anytime. Ian Gow, if he ever finds his testicles, I would welcome him on the podcast.
I wouldn't bet on that. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. You're absolutely fucking right. But happy to have anyone on. Happy to debate with people. I think it's very important that you be able to say how you feel, talk the truth. And not everyone's going to agree with it, but you can only put your best foot forward, right? It's not easy owning a football club, guys. I'll tell you that right now. But you do your best, and that's all that matters.
All right. Well, on that note, let's wrap things up for today. Of course, we'll be back next Wednesday. So we'll have another podcast as usual. Until then, if you do have any questions, there may be questions that came out of today's discussion, any Posh fans, you can feel free to send those over to us. That's contact@hardtruthfootball.com. So with that being said, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks, Phil.